Hello and welcome to B School Erudite. I am Banu Sivakrishna and this is the first video and a complete walkthrough of the entire AQA A-Level Business Specifications 7131 and 7132 for the 2026 AS and A-Level exams and 2027 A-Level exams, all 10 units from the start to finish. Over the coming weeks, we'll cover everything you need for your 7132 exams. What is business, managers, leadership decision making, and marketing, finance, HR, operations, strategic changes, implementation, strategic decision making, competitive advantages, frameworks, and also managing cultural change. Each video is designed to be a personal revision session. Clear explanations, real business examples, and exam techniques, and plenty of stories to make it stick. In this video, we are starting at the very beginning. Unit 1, what is business? And we'll look at why businesses exist, how they set objectives, the different legal structures, stakeholders involved, the external environment, and much more. By the end, you will have a solid foundation for the rest of the course. So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's dive in. And we understand why do businesses exist. Businesses exist to solve problems and satisfy needs and wants. Without them, we would have to produce everything ourselves, and that's quite impossible. They also create jobs, pay taxes, and drive innovation. A great example is James Dyson. He was frustrated that his vacuum cleaner lost suction. He spotted a problem and created a solution. After over 5,000 prototypes. That's the essence of business. Why do businesses actually exist? It's not just to make money. That's a shocker, I know. They exist to solve problems and meet needs. Think about it. Uber solved the "where is my taxi" problem. Netflix solved the "I am bored and it's raining, what do I do" problem. If you can solve a problem for enough people, congratulations, you've got a business. The textbook adds that businesses also create employment, generate income, and produce new products and opportunities. GlaxoSmithKline doesn't just make profit, it develops medicines that save lives. So remember, a business that only chases money without solving a real problem usually struggles and doesn't last long. Now let's understand the concept of adding value. How do businesses turn a simple idea into profit? Through adding value. This is the process of turning cheap inputs into something worth much more than that. Look at that coffee bean, raw. It's worth a few pence. But after roasting, grinding, brewing, and serving it in a nice cup with a little biscuit and creating good ambience, that Starbucks, suddenly it's a €4 coffee. The production process, roasting, packaging, branding, and the hospitality adds value. The textbook uses Apple's iPhone as an example. The parts cost a fraction of the selling price, but the design, technology, and the status adds huge value. That's the magic. Now we understand the common business objectives. So what are businesses actually aiming for? These are the objectives, the goals that direct strategy. The most common ones are profit and profit maximization. Making as much money as possible. That's profit maximization. Whereas growth is getting bigger, more stores, more expanding into new geographies and markets and new product ranges and diversifying your product portfolio. And then comes survival, which is staying alive, especially for new or struggling firms. And then we have cash flow, which is having enough actual money in the bank to pay bills and not just people owing us to pay us later. And then we have social and ethical objectives, doing good for the people or the planet. A startup's main objective is often survival. You can't grow if you're dead. A giant like Amazon or Netflix or Disney might prioritize market share over short-term profit. So always ask, what is this business trying to achieve right now? Is it a startup or is it a large multinational corporation? Accordingly, you can define your wise objective. Now, when I say wise isn't enough. You have to be smart. You can't just say we want to grow. That's like saying I want to be fit without a plan. Objectives need to be smart, specific, exactly what you want to achieve, measurable, so you can track progress, and achievable, everyone on board, realistic, actually possible, and time bound. By when can this happen? So a good smart objective is increase market share by 5% within 12 months. A bad one would be do better, grow, make profit, expand. That doesn't make sense. In your exams, if an objective isn't smart, you can criticize it and suggest an improvement. That's analysis. That's where you get the marks. Now let's understand the difference between mission and vision statements. Two terms that often get confused: mission and vision. The mission, see the M, what moment are you? The mission is about today, what the business does at this moment, its purpose. It answers what we do. The vision is about tomorrow, where the business wants to be. It answers what do we want to become. Vision is a V that looks into the future. Mission is about the moment. Think of a compass, which is a mission, and a telescope is a vision. The mission keeps you on track now, the vision gives you a destination. In the exam, if you see a statement about daily operation, it's a mission. If it's about future aspirations, it's a vision. Now let's go to some of the famous examples of global mission statements. Amazon, to be Earth's most customer-centric company. Notice they didn't just say most profitable. Their belief is that if you obsess over customers, profit will follow. Now we look at Tesla. To accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That's a bold, world-changing vision. You might not agree with it, but still that's what companies say. They might not totally achieve it to convince the customers, but they are in the pursuit. Now we see Patagonia. We all love this company. And they say, we are in a business to save our home planet. That's so strong. It influences everything. From materials to marketing to who they hire, how they onboard them, everything. These statements aren't just PR. PR means public relations. They guide every major decision. Now we come to understand the different types of businesses. Who actually owns the business? The first one is the sole trader. This is one person owning and running the whole show. A plumber, a freelancer, a graphic designer, a local car shop owner, a content creator. All of these are sole traders. Now the advantages of being a sole trader are you are the boss. Total control. You keep 100% of the profits. Easy to set up, no complicated paperwork. But the disadvantage, unlimited liability. This is the scary part. If the business goes into debt, into losses, you are the personally responsible only person. They can come after your house, your car, your savings. The banks will make you liable for everything. And sole traders can lose their personal possessions. That's a big risk. You might lose your house, car, or your watch, Rolex, if your business doesn't do well. But in a partnership, the other one, 2 or more people share ownership and responsibility, usually 2 to 20 people. And the advantage of a partnership are shared expertise. One partner might be great with money, the other with marketing. You also pool your capital. So it's easier to raise funds. And the disadvantage of it are, you still have unlimited liability and you can fall out. That's why a deed of partnership is crucial. It's a legal document that sets out who decides what and how profits are split. Think of it as a prenup for your business. Now let's come private limited company. For the magic words, limited liability. You are not the only person responsible. When you form a company like a private limited company, LTD, the business becomes a separate legal entity. If the company fails, the shareholders only lose what they invested. Their personal assets, for example, your home, your savings, are all safe. They won't be taken away by the bank because it is a private limited company. The textbook puts it perfectly. The maximum amount that could be lost is fixed. That's the huge attraction of incorporation. What's the downside of this? You can't just sell shares to anyone on the street. There are rules, but for most serious businesses, limited liability is a game changer. Now we come to the public limited companies. A public limited or a PLC is the big league. Think Vodafone, BP, British Petroleum, Marks and Spencer. All of these are public limited companies. What is the advantage of these? They can sell shares to the general public on the stock exchange. That means they can raise massive amounts of capital, millions or even billions, to fund huge projects. What are the disadvantage of this? Public scrutiny. They have to publish their accounts to everyone to see. And they face constant pressure from thousands of shareholders who want quick returns. That short-term pressure can be brutal. They have to take all the burden for the quick returns. They have to take all the pressure for that. See, everything has advantage and disadvantage. And now we come to the understanding what are the rights they have so that they can make most of the benefits. Why would anyone buy a share? There are two reasons. First, the dividends, a share of the company's profit. Capital growth, you buy a share for £1, it rises to £5, you sell it and the pocket the difference. Shareholders also have rights. They can vote for the annual general meeting on major issues like who sits on the board of directors, who becomes the CEO, who is the successor of leadership positions, what markets they enter. The more shares you own, the more votes you have. So a big institutional investor can really influence decisions. Now we understand the shareholder concept. It's not just about shareholders. A stakeholder is anyone affected by the business. A shareholder is different to a stakeholder. Employees care about pay, job security, and working conditions. Customers want quality products or service, fair prices, and good service and respect. Customer satisfaction is all that they matter. The local community cares about jobs and environmental impact. These are all stakeholders along with the government. The government wants taxes and you compliance with the laws. You abiding and following the rules and laws of the country, the land, wherever you're doing your business. And what's the challenge here? Their needs often conflict. For example, raising prices might please shareholders but annoy customers. Making staff redundant might help profit but hurt the community. In your exams, you'll often be asked to analyze these trade-offs. Which stakeholder is getting affected by what and how do they deal with it? How do they overcome? So here's the basic maths of business: the revenue, total costs, and profit. Measuring profitability. How do you do that? Revenue, to start with, is the turnover, which is simply the total money from sales, all the money you're getting, not just the profit, everything. For example, let's say you're getting this much of revenue, out of which only this much could be a profit. If you're getting 100 euros, only 10 euros could be a profit. So revenue is all the money you're getting. So that's total money from sales. That's price multiplied by quantity sold. Whereas total costs is everything you spend. That's fixed costs like rents and salaries plus variable costs like raw materials and fuel. Whereas on the other hand, profit is revenue minus total costs. If we see an example of a lemonade stand that sells 100 cups at £1 each, the revenue is £100. The fixed cost is £20 to set up the stall and stuff, but the variable cost to get the water, sugar, and lemon would be 30 cents per cup, and that's times by 100 is £30. So the total cost is £50. So the profit is £50. Simple. The textbook has a similar example with garden sheds. You will need to do these calculations in the exam. I'm attaching you the link to the textbook in the drive link, which I scanned. So now we go to why profit isn't just a reward. It has vital functions. If we see source of finance, you can reinvest profits to grow. You can signal to investors. Profitable companies attract more investment. You can raise more series of fundings. Reward for risk. Entrepreneurs risk everything. Profit is their price. And buffer, if sales drop, a profitable business can survive longer by having when there is a losses happening. Without profit, I'm saying again, without profit, you can't attract loans. Dividends is simply what you pay to shareholders as a bonus, simply for getting best returns for their investment. And eventually you'll run out of cash. That's why even social enterprises need to make a surplus. Otherwise, they can't keep doing the good stuff. Now, let's come to understand the reasons why businesses fail. This is something we are learning now, and this is also the last chapter. Chapter number 42 of AQA A-level business is why businesses fail. This is what we are starting with, and this is what we are going to end with in the 10th unit. Reasons for business failure. Why do businesses go bust and struggle? There are three common pitfalls. Poor cash flow, running out of liquid cash even when you're profitable. You've made the sale but the customer hasn't paid you yet, and the supplier is knocking on your door. Give me the money, but you don't have it. No, and the second pitfall would be, bad reason would be, no market need, launching a product nobody actually wants. The common call is that a common pitfall where, remember the new Coke disaster. Coca-Cola changed the recipe and customers revolted against it. Imagine you selling strawberry pasta in Poland. People might like it, but you sell the same thing in Italy, they might not really enjoy it, though they want to experiment it once or twice, but they would just go with their classic recipes. It's like selling pineapple pizza in Canada. That was a great idea in Canada and USA, but if you sell a pineapple pizza in Italy, that might not be a great idea. So the nonna will get angry. So you have to understand, does my customers want it? And third is external shocks. sudden changes like interest rate hikes, a pandemic or a war or a recession or a trade block getting upset. You can't control them. You can prepare. That's the max you can do. And now we understand entrepreneurs and risk. Entrepreneurs are the brave individuals who turn ideas into reality. They take calculated risk. They're not gamblers, they have done their homework. They have opportunity recognition skill, seeing a gap in the market before others do. That's how Ricky Ponting looks at the gap between cricket fielders. The textbook mentions Bill Gates focusing Microsoft on the internet in 1995. That was a huge race that paid off spectacularly. Now we see what characterizes an entrepreneur, what makes a good entrepreneur. Resilience. This was a word that my primary school teacher, Miss Karen Wood, taught me about. Resilience. She loves this word. So resilience is bouncing back from failure. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter. And the second is innovation, thinking outside the box. James Dyson made over 5,000 prototypes for his bagless vacuum. Third is initiative. You need to have this skill. Being a self-starter or the first mover, you don't wait for permission, you just make things happen. Like, who even thought something like ChatGPT, Cloud Edge, Gemini and DeepSeek would be coming into picture? But they came because somebody thought of it. These are the traits that examiners look for. In a case study, if someone starts a business, you can analyze whether they have these traits and how that affects success. For example, traits like resilience and initiative and other characteristics that defines a good entrepreneur. And now we take a scenario of Airbnb. The founders needed to pay rent. They saw a problem. A design conference meant all hotels were sold out. What's the solution now? Rent out air mattresses in their living room. They identified the need and solved the problem with a platform built on trust and convenience. Now it's a global giant worth billions. That's the power of solving a human problem. And what are the key startup lessons we can reflect on? What can we learn from someone like Airbnb? Start with a human first problem. A mobile phone, this would look good on Play Store or App Store, or this would scroll very easily on the new Google Pixel Pro with the fast speed of scrolling rate. But build it because there is a problem that needs solving. And second, validate your idea with market research before spending money on it. Don't spend £1 million on inventory before you know if anyone will buy it. Third, stay flexible and be ready to pivot. Your first idea might fail. Be ready to change direction based on feedback. Next, let's look at ways to add value. How do you actually add value? There are 3 strategic methods. First, branding. Apple, we all love Apple, creates an emotional connection. You're not just buying a phone, you're buying into a community. Just what even Harley Davidson does. That allows premium pricing. And now we see it convenience. Amazon Prime saves your time and effort. 2-day delivery, 1-day delivery in India, Bangalore, that's valuable. Things are getting faster. And third, quality. If you see in Poland, AQA is one store that is very famous for its branding, convenience and reliability, and also quality and credibility. So quality using superior materials or expert craftsmanship. A Rolex isn't just a watch, it's a piece of engineering. It also has an emotional attachment with a Swiss person. For example, my friends from Switzerland, they love their Rolex watches because their grandfathers and their fathers used it since they knew where the family is going. So they look at their family's time in that watch. It's like a watch that has seen their family's continuation. So, and it's also about the engineering and the brand resonance. And next we come to the practicalities. How do we practically add value? Practical value addition. Adding value isn't just about the factory floor. There are things we can do. For example, design. Making the product look good and work well. Think Dyson or Bang & Olufsen. And customer service. A phenomenal experience before, during and after the sale. The John Lewis partnership is famous for this. And next, unique selling point or unique selling proposition. Standing out from the crowd. Domino's USP was hot, fresh pizza delivered to your door in 30 minutes. Now let's look at PESTLE analysis. Political, economical, social, technological, legal and environmental. All these factors externally affect the business. Businesses don't operate in a vacuum. just because James Dyson invented it, a bagless vacuum. The outside world affects them. There is a framework to analyze that external environment. It stands for political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. Here, environment means competitive environment and also the actual environment we all talk about, which is nature and greenery, and mainly the competitive environment. And why PESTLE matters, you can comment down on why you think PESTLE really matters. Why do you even bother about it? Why can't we just control everything? Why bother? Because understanding the external environments helps you spot opportunities and avoid threats. For example, if you see a social trend towards veganism, that's an opportunity. You might launch a plant-based burger and people would go crazy for it. If you see a legal change banning plastic straws, you need to find an alternative supplier. If you see there are tariffs imposed by Donald Trump on China, you should plan how to plan for it. If you're seeing a war happening in the Southwest Asia, you can actually plan your business trade routes according to that. So PESTLE helps you make smarter strategic choices. And now let's take an example of interest rates. Here's how an economic factor hits a business. If the Bank of England raises interest rates to 1.5%, consumers with variable mortgages have less disposable income. They spend less on holidays, cars, and luxury goods. High grade businesses, for example, those with lots of debt, face higher interest payments. Their profits get squeezed and they might cut investment or hiring. That's a classic threat. In your exam, you would trace the chain of effects. What's affecting what, and how do we understand this relativity? If something is happening in USA, how is that affecting something happening in Israel? How is that affecting Russia? Eventually, how is it affecting China? If it affects China, obviously it's going to affect India. If it affects India, China, Russia, Middle East, and everywhere, it's obviously going to affect Europe. If it affects Europe and America and China, it's definitely going to affect UK. So they are factors we have to be very vigilant about. And now we see the economic variables. Three more economic factors to watch are inflation, exchange rates, and unemployment. First, let's start with inflation. Inflation is rising prices reduce consumer purchasing power. Your 20 euro note or a 20 pound currency note buys less if inflation is going up. That's what we saw in the classic case of Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and recently in Sri Lanka. The currency lost its value to a significant amount. And next is exchange rates. A strong pound makes imports cheaper. Good if you buy from abroad, but export more expensive. Bad if you sell abroad, if you're from UK. Unemployment is the second reason. High unemployment lowers demand. Fewer people have money, but makes hiring cheaper. More people are looking for work. And now we understand business and the pandemic. COVID-19 was a masterclass in external shocks. It forced three massive shifts. E-commerce boom. Physical stores closed, online sales exploded. Second, remote work. Offices became digital collaborations. Zoom, Google Meet, and Teams became household names. And also payment gateways became more popular. And supply disruptions. Global lockdowns broke production lines. Remember the toilet paper shortage? That was a supply chain failure. Now, what did we learn from this? Contingency planning. Always have a plan B for unexpected crisis. Digital agility. Ensure your technology is ready for remote operations. A business on paper is a fragile business. In reality, it could be if you don't really have a plan B. And second, supply chain security. Don't rely on just one supplier in one country. Diversify your portfolio, diversify your opportunities. If you are a diplomat, ensure you have great partnerships with more countries. So if one country is in struggling times, try to help them and also benefit from the other friends you made in the countries. The same way in businesses. Ensure you have good suppliers, retailers, and distributors who are supporting your business as you go forward. Now, let's understand what is influencing. Stakeholders have power to influence companies. More than what's influencing them, they can influence a lot. Customer power. A boycott or a viral social media campaign can destroy a brand overnight. Remember when United Airlines bragged a passenger off a plane? The internet exploded. Employee influence. A strike or mass walkout can halt production entirely. Now we look at Mendelow's matrix. How do you manage all these stakeholders? Government, politics, economics, and there are customers, employees, suppliers, and retailers, and board of directors, so many. You can use Mendelow's matrix if they have low interest, or high power and low power. So you can actually keep them at the right place and understand their responsibilities and the risk of how you can transact with them. The people who come at high power and high interest are key players. You must fully engage and satisfy them. Whereas high power but low interest, keep them satisfied. Don't bother them with small stuff, but keep them happy on the big issues. For example, the government. Now, low power but high interest, keep informed, keep them in the loop, but they won't dictate your strategy. They could be a CSR and an NGO. They don't have much power, but they might be having high interest. Are you doing vegan? Are you doing low pollution? Are you doing sustainable energy? Are you using paper straws? The NGOs and CSR Act communities may be very interested into that, but they don't really have a lot of power. And now we have low power and low interest. Minimal effort. Just monitor them. Just ensure they're not really hurt. So this matrix is brilliant for exam case studies. Use it to decide which stakeholder a manager should prioritize. Now let's look at ethical business objectives. Doing the right thing. Ethical objectives include not just legal, because legal is something, the law of every country is different to every country. What's legal in Israel might be not legal in Iran. What's legal in Iran might not be legal in Russia. So, but ethical is something a business which operates globally might be consistent. For example, respecting customers and creating employee satisfaction, sustainable sourcing, fair trade, following the taxes. So these are all ethical objectives. So doing the right thing, ethical objectives include like sustainable sourcing to start with, ensuring raw materials don't harm the environment, animals, plants, and everything that comes into the environment and ecosystem. And next, fair trade, paying suppliers in developing nations a living wage and not taking advantage of them, as you could see in this movie called as Blood Diamond. So people are exploited. And now, truthful advertising, no misleading claims, no miracle cures. There was one incident when Red Bull was promoting, it gives you wings. Somebody really took it so seriously and said, it's not giving me wings. What do I do? And the court made Red Bull pay that customer a lot of money. So, and also if you know, recently Deloitte had to pay a lot of money to the government in Australia for using ChatGPT to create their audit reports. So you have to be very truthful and integrity to be maintained. Now we come to the business case for CS. Why bother being ethical? I told you how to be ethical, but why bother being ethical? There are 3 reasons. Brand loyalty. It's very hard to build, but very easy to lose. Customers feel good buying from ethical brands. Second, talent attraction. The best employees want to work for good companies. No one dreams of working for a polluter. Third is USP. Ethics can be a powerful differentiator in a crowded market. The co-op uses its ethical stance to stand out. And now we understand the small business challenges. Small businesses usually face unique hurdles. Limited capital, they are harder to get a bank loan or attract investors. Banks see them as risky and nobody really wants to give them a loan because they're a small business. And now we see vulnerability. One bad month can close the business. A big client not paying on time can be fatal. Bargaining power of suppliers charge higher prices to small buyers. Tesco can squeeze its suppliers. Your local corner shop can't because they are not really the price deciders. They're only getting influenced by the pricing decisions already set up by the macroeconomic forces. And now, what are the challenges faced by large businesses? Big businesses have their own problems. It's not like they don't have any problems. Diseconomies of scale, communication breakdowns. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Do you know what happened with Nokia? I'll tell you. Nokia employees already had the idea of creating a smartphone which is a touchscreen phone back in 2007 or before that, but they didn't really launch it. Because the employees knew how to do that and they saw this trend, they saw the competitive intel that Apple might launch it, but all that employees were discussing, it never reached the managers, and the managers who got it very late couldn't really take it to the CEO. So what is this? Bureaucracy and bad communication breaks down. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. The CEO doesn't know what the employees are doing. The CEO might not be knowing what to communicate with the market. Take the feedback, take the surveys, take the inputs. That's how you can really strive for excellence. Bureaucracy. Decisions take forever. Even if the CEO knew what to do, with the number of layers in the management, 15 to 20 layers, from the CEO to vice president, directors, managers, AVPs, and then all the specialists, and then comes to the associates and engineers and executives. Man, Nokia might not really do that. It took them 5 years to actually come up with a smartphone later on with the partnership with Microsoft Lumia. So high fixed costs, massive overheads, rents for 500 stores, salaries for thousands of staff that you have to pay every month even if sales are bad, and then layoffs. Recently we read the but they might be having different problems with high fixed costs or massive overhead rent and other variable prices they have to deal with that might force them to make harsh decisions. The public sector is owned by the state, the government. So service-led objectives is to provide essential services, not make a profit. Think the NHS, the police or the schools. Taxation funding. They are paid for your taxes. Now let's look at the private sector. So public is like a public school owned by the government, like public hospitals. Whereas private sector is owned by individuals or shareholders like Netflix, Disney, Amazon, Flipkart, Gross, Aldi, all this. So profit driven, the main aim is to generate a surplus. They are market led, they respond to consumer demand and competitive pressure. If you don't want it, they won't sell it. Now let's look at the business plan, how to come up with this. A business plan is the blueprint for success. It's essential for getting a loan from the bank. It should include few things. First, a market analysis. Who are your customers? Who are your competitors? What's the marketing strategy? What are the 4 P's? For example, marketing strategy has 4 P's. We will learn that more in depth in Unit 3 marketing, but the 4 P's are product, price, place, and promotion. And what is the financial forecast, which we will learn in Unit 5 finance, and predicting cash flow and profitability. Banks love numbers, that gives confidence, and about the return on investment, about how quick you can pay back the loan. And now, after that, we understand the SWOT analysis as we come to the end of the unit. SWOT is your strategic best friend. It analyzes internal and external position of your business. The internal are your strengths and your weakness. What's good and bad inside your business. A strong brand versus high debt. You might have these both. External opportunities and threats are what's happening outside. These are external. Example, new global markets versus new aggressive competitors. The opportunity is you can expand to Japan or Jamaica, but the threat is new aggressive competitors in your own current market where you're already based out. So you build on strengths, fix weaknesses, exploit opportunities, and defend against threats. I'm saying it again so you understand. You build on strengths, fix weaknesses, exploit opportunities, and defend against threats. Now we understand what is market capitalization. This is how we value a PLC. Market capitalization is the total value of the company's shares. And how do we calculate that? Share price times number of shares. Share price multiplied by number of shares. If a PLC has 10 million shares and each share is worth 5 euros, its market cap is 50 million euros. It tells you how big the company is in the eyes of the stock market. And now we come to the last slide as we quickly look at exam technique for the dreaded 9-mark question. From this unit, you mostly get a 9 marks questions. You need 3 things. Assessment objective 1 is to have a good knowledge. Define the key terms, smart objectives, limited companies, public limited companies, and the factors that affect SWOT, PESTLE, and other stuff. And also understand what are the objectives of each stakeholder. So have this knowledge. Second, application. Assessment objective 2 is application. Link it to the case study. Therefore, for the specific coffee shop, a smart objective would be so. And what could not be a smart objective? Analysis. Show the impact. This is the third assessment objective. Use chains of reasoning because the coffee shop reduced its prices, leading to a fall in customer numbers. Therefore, revenue decreased. So chain those because, leading to, therefore, henceforth, eventually, together, using these words, and you will get those high marks once you show the cause and effect relationship, the needs and gratifications, the influencers, and what's the impact if you show that chain of connection. And now let's wrap up this unit. Before we go to unit, you know now why businesses exist, how they add value, their objectives, who owns them, who cares about them, what are they called as. If you remember, comment down what is smart objective full form. Practice the 6 marks and 9 marks questions, and also knowledge testing 1 mark questions. And all I can say is thank you for watching this video. Good luck with your revision. You got this, definitely. We're just starting with this. See you in unit 2. and you have your exams in 1 month if you're writing for the 2026 exams, and good luck with that.